Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1325. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? So are the fleas. Your bed is a half-rotted straw mattress stuffed with hay, lice, and memories of the livestock that used it before you. It smells like a barn floor because it was won about 3 months ago. There's no memory foam, no pillows, no Egyptian cotton. Just a wool blanket that hasn't seen soap since last winter, now heavier than your cousin from months of grime. You blink as the church bell rings, your version of an alarm clock. Loud, early, and extremely judgmental. Your home is a wooden hut with one room. No windows. One room for you, your family, your goats, and a handful of domestic insects. Open concept living, they call it now. The aroma? A subtle mix of stale beer, wet earth, unwashed humanity, and goat. You stretch and immediately regret it. Your joints crack like old floorboards. You're 22, which is middle-aged here. Your spine sounds like someone rolling dice in a wooden bowl. The floor is wet from rain leaking through the thatched roof, or crusty from chicken-related incidents. Either way, you're barefoot and already part of the ecosystem. Privacy doesn't exist. You share your sleeping space with your siblings, parents, maybe even a neighbor or a monk passing through. There's no curtain, no bedroom, no me time, just parasites, rodents, and 8 other people waking up with you. And the day hasn't even started. Medieval Europe, land of brave knights, epic quests, and absolutely no bathrooms. Nature still calls, but there's no toilet to answer it. No flushing, no porcelain throne, no toilet paper, not even a door to close. What you have is a bucket, if you're lucky, a hole in a plank, if you're not. And if you're in the middle of town, hope you enjoy public humiliation. If you're a peasant, your restroom is a corner behind your house, or just a street. And yes, people throw their waste out the window, literally, into the road. The protocol is to yell garde à l'eau, from the French garde as low, which means look out for the water, but most people either mumble it or skip it. So if you're walking through town, stay alert unless you want a chamber pot surprise from above. The streets become rivers of filth, human waste, horse manure, rotting food, and whatever that slime is in the corner that even rats avoid. You try to dodge puddles, but your shoes are open leather flaps, and one wrong step means your foot's marinating in fermented misery. And don't think castles are better. Noble lords had garderobes, stone cubicles built into the walls with a hole that dropped straight into the moat. Yes, the moat. You know, the one enemies swim through to storm the castle. Sometimes they climb up through the waste chute. Not a metaphor. Literal sewer infiltration. Toilet paper? Try leaves. Maybe straw. If you're fancy, an old rag. If you're out of luck, your own hand. Soap is rare. Hand washing is optional. And now you understand why handshakes weren't common yet. Public toilets do exist in cities, but they're just long benches with holes and zero privacy. You sit elbow to elbow with strangers in what's basically an open-air panic room. You can talk, sure, but you probably won't want to breathe. Modern plumbing isn't just a luxury. It's a miracle. You survived the night and your medieval bathroom experience. Time for reward? Nope. It's time for breakfast. And in the Middle Ages, breakfast is more punishment than meal. Forget eggs, bacon, toast, or even a sad bagel. Breakfast is pottage, an edible sludge made from boiling grains, onions, and whatever else didn't rot overnight. It's thick, grayish, and always suspiciously warm, like it's been cooking since the last full moon. Sometimes meat drips get added for flavor. Sometimes a dead mouse falls in. Either way, nobody cares. You eat from a wooden bowl with a wooden spoon that you share with your siblings. Sanitation? Optional. Bread? Yes, but it's not soft or fluffy. It's a dry hunk of rye or barley, often with sand, sawdust, or ground-up beans added to stretch the flour. Some loaves are so hard they double as weapons. Drinks? No coffee, no tea, no orange juice. You drink ale. Weak beer, really. Because water is so contaminated that it's safer to sip alcohol than risk dying of dysentery. Even children drink it. It's not about fun. It's about survival. Want fruit? Only if it's in season. Cheese? Maybe once a month. if a goat cooperates. And spices? Only if you're royalty. A pinch of cinnamon is worth more than a day's wages. Breakfast is beige, barely edible, and 100% sad. But it's fuel for the long, painful day ahead. Now that you've filled your stomach with watery oatmeal and lukewarm beer, it's time to get dressed. Don't expect a walk-in closet. You own maybe 2 outfits. One's for everyday use. The other is for when someone dies. Neither is clean. You throw on your tunic, a rectangular piece of wool with holes for your arms and head. It smells like sheep because it basically still is sheep. Pants? More like rough tubes tied with string. No zippers, no elastic waistbands. Just coarse linen biting into your hips all day. Shoes? You call them shoes, but they're leather sacks tied with thongs. They protect your feet about as well as a paper bag in a rainstorm. Socks don't exist. Your feet are frozen in winter, blistered in summer, and moldy in between. Undergarments? If you're rich, maybe a linen shirt. If not, you go commando. Laundry day is whenever it rains hard enough, and your clothes are already on the line. You wash them in cold river water with lye soap, if you can afford it. And by wash, we mean bash them against rocks and hope for the best. No deodorant, no perfumes, just natural body musk and herbs sewn into your sleeves to mask the stench. Getting dressed isn't about fashion. It's about layers. Enough to keep the cold out and the fleas in. There are no mirrors, so you don't know what you look like. But rest assured, it's not good. Chores in the 1300s make CrossFit look like yoga. There's no idle scrolling. No, I'll do it later. Everything you need to survive has to be made, fetched, carried, chopped, lifted, cleaned, or repaired by hand. Usually by you. Fetching water? That's a mile-long walk to a questionable stream. Carrying it back? That's your arm workout. Need to cook? First, you chop wood, then build a fire, then maybe kill a chicken, pluck it, gut it, and cook it over flames that you're keeping alive with your breath and soul. Weaving cloth? Hours of spinning wool by hand. Baking bread? Start by grinding your own grain. Want salt? Walk to town and barter something for a pinch. Every basic task is an endurance challenge, except nobody's clapping for you at the end. Laundry? Scrubbing heavy, mud-caked linens in freezing water while your knuckles bleed. Cleaning your home? Broom made from twigs, dustpan made from your hands. Taking care of animals? Feed the pigs, milk the goat, chase a chicken that just pooped on your blanket. And children? You have 6. 1 is crying. 2 are missing. 1 is gnawing on something alive. There's no daycare, no parenting books, just yelling. If you're a serf, the Lord expects you to tend his fields, too. That means hours of bending over to sow, weed, and harvest grain in the hot sun. If you stop working, you don't eat. If you work too slowly, you might get punished. At the end of the day, you collapse into your pile of hay with muscles screaming, fingers raw, and nothing left in your soul but the knowledge you're going to do it all again tomorrow. And that's just Monday. You wake up stiff and sore, your muscles aching like you ran a marathon last night. The cold air bites your skin through your ragged clothes. Your first job? Feed the animals. You shuffle outside your hut, the ground cold and muddy beneath your bare feet. The goats bleat hungrily, waiting for you to toss hay into their trough. Chickens cluck and flap, scrambling to get their share of grain you saved for them. The pigs snort, rooting through the mud like they own the place, which they basically do. Your little brother is trying to catch a chicken, and it's clear this won't end well. You chase after him, swatting flies buzzing near your face. Try to ignore the stench of manure and sweat hanging thick in the air. You can taste the dust and dirt on your tongue, and the sweat starts to bead down your forehead. Your hands are cracked and rough from years of hauling water, fixing fences, and chopping wood. By the time you finish feeding, your mother is already outside, washing clothes in the river. You join her, plunging your arms into freezing water. Scrubbing until your skin turns red and raw. The soap is lye made from ashes, harsh enough to burn your eyes, but necessary to get rid of the grime. There's no break, no rest. The sun hasn't even reached its peak, and you're already tired. But the animals must be cared for, the fire must be kept alive, and the fields won't tend themselves. Every day, you start like this, wet, muddy, and aching, and you know it will only get worse. After morning chores, it's time to head to the fields. You were born into this life, and the land owns you as much as you own the land. The crops you tend feed your family and pay your lord's tax. If you fail, everyone suffers. You grab your worn-out wooden hoe, its handle splintered and cracked, and trudge toward the patch of earth assigned to your family. The soil is heavy, packed with stones and weeds. You bend low, pulling at stubborn weeds that threaten to choke the seedlings. Your fingers tear against thorns and dry roots, and dirt cakes under your nails. The sun is unrelenting, beating down through a pale blue sky that offers little shade. You glance around at others working nearby. Some grumble under their breath. Others keep their heads down, focus on their tasks. No one speaks much. There's no time for idle chatter. Your knees ache from kneeling on hard ground. Your back stiffens as you stand and stoop again. Sweat drips from your brow into your eyes, stinging and blurring your vision. You think of the castle on the hill, the lord and his family living in luxury while you suffer. They don't wake up to this toil. They don't know the taste of hunger or the ache of hard labor. But there's no escape. This is your life, as it has been for generations. The fields won't tend themselves, and neither will your family survive without your work. By midday, hunger gnaws at your insides like a relentless beast. You sit on a rough wooden bench near the hut, trying to catch your breath. Your lunch is a hunk of stale rye bread, so dense it could break a tooth. You bite off a piece, chewing carefully to avoid the grit hidden inside. Beside it is your bowl of pottage, the same gray, lumpy mush that's been your staple since childhood. It smells faintly of onions and burnt herbs, but you've long stopped expecting it to taste good. Your siblings crowd around you, hungry and tired. You share your meager meal without complaint, knowing there's not enough to go around. You watch the goats nibble on some dry grass nearby, envying their freedom to roam. Your little sister picks at her bowl, but can't keep the food down. Her stomach is upset again. You swallow hard, pushing the hunger down, because there's no time to be weak. The fields won't weed themselves. The animals won't feed themselves, and your family depends on you. Every bite tastes like sacrifice. After lunch, you wander to the village to check on other tasks. The streets are narrow and muddy, filled with the smell of manure, sweat, and smoke. Children run and scream, chasing each other through the filth. Dogs bark and scramble over piles of rotting food. You dodge puddles and stepping stones, trying not to slip. A cart laden with hay clatters past, pulled by a thin, tired horse. Neighbors nod silently or grunt greetings. Everyone's tired, worn down by the endless grind. You stop at the blacksmith's forge where sparks fly and hammers pound iron into shape. The blacksmith's muscles ripple with every strike. You envy his strength and skill. A few women are spinning wool nearby, their fingers moving quickly over the rough fibers. You think of the clothes you'll need to patch when winter comes. Despite the chaos, the village is a place of community, where everyone knows each other's burdens. But there's little joy here, only survival. As the sun sinks low, you return to the hut, exhausted but far from finished. You start gathering firewood, dragging dry branches back to hearth. Your fingers are scraped and splintered, your legs shaky. Your mother stokes the fire, preparing dinner, while your father sharpens tools for tomorrow. You help by mending torn clothes, using thread that's thin and coarse. The wool is itchy and rough against your skin, but warmth beats comfort any day. Outside, the animals settle in their pens. Chickens cluck softly, goats chew cud, and pigs grunt in the mud. You feel every ache in your body, the stinging burns, the dull throb in your knees, the persistent scratch of fleas crawling through your hair. You know sleep will come fitfully. You'll lie on your straw mattress with the cold seeping through cracks in the walls, fleas biting mercilessly. Tomorrow it all starts again. The dawn breaks not with birdsong, but with the raucous crow of roosters in the village. Your eyes snap open, barely rested, and the chill of the morning air cuts through your thin, threadbare tunic. You haul yourself out of the straw mattress, joint stiff from yesterday's labor. The floor is cold, and you carefully avoid the puddle near the door where rain has leaked through the thatched roof again. Outside, Smoke curls from chimneys, mostly with fires that fill the village with a haze that clings to your clothes and hair. Your nose wrinkles, mixing the scent of burning twigs with the earthy smell of wet earth and animal dung. Your family is already stirring. Your younger sister rubs her eyes while your father prepares to leave for the fields again. Your mother is busy grinding grain on a stone wheel, her hands cracked and bleeding. You realize today is market day. That means more work, carrying goods, hauling water, trading whatever little your family can spare. But it also means a chance to see people from nearby villages, some new faces, and the faintest hope of hearing news from beyond your small world. The village is alive with noise and movement. Children chase chickens, men load carts, and women chatter over laundry basins. You pull on your rough woolen cloak and prepare yourself for another day, knowing the market's chaos will soon swallow you whole. At the market, the air is thick with the scent of fresh bread, animal hides, herbs, and unwashed bodies. You stand among a crowd of peasants, merchants, and nobles disguised in their simpler clothes. Everyone is here to trade, but the stakes are high. Your family's survival may depend on a good bargain. Your mother barters for salt and some dried fish, while you help carry sacks of grain and bundles of firewood. The market is noisy, loud voices shouting prices, and insults flying as fiercely as a hawkers selling their goods. You see a traveling peddler with shiny trinkets and colorful cloth, things you've never seen up close before. Your little sister gawks at a wooden doll painted with bright colors. You know better than to hope for luxuries. Every coin must be earned and spent wisely. As you walk to the stalls, you watch nobles in their polished boots and fine fabrics glide by, oblivious to the mud and misery beneath their feet. Your hands ache from hauling bundles. Your back is sore, but there's a thrill in being part of the bustling chaos. For a moment, you forget the hardships at home. But as the sun starts to dip, you know the market's over and your chores are not. Returning home, you unload the goods, stacking sacks of grain and bundles of firewood in the corner of your hut. Your family sits around the fire, faces tired but relieved to have food and supplies. You begin the evening's work, mending clothes, patching holes in your shoes, and preparing food for tomorrow. Your mother stirs a pot of pottage over the fire, its thick gray mush bubbling quietly. Your younger siblings squabble quietly nearby, tired but restless. Outside, the animals settle down, their soft noises blending with the crackling fire. You try to rest for a moment, but the aches in your muscles keep you awake. The fleas crawl beneath your clothes, biting and biting again. Sleep is a luxury that comes only when exhaustion forces it. You know you will wake and do it all again. In the evenings, your family gathers near the fire, the only light in your dark hut. Your father tells stories of nights and battles, but you know the truth is harsher. Life is a constant fight, for food, for survival, and against disease. Your older brother listens intently, dreaming of a better life far from the fields. Your mother hums an old song, trying to soothe the worries that hang heavy in the air. The fire casts flickering shadows on the walls, dancing like restless spirits. You think of the plague stories whispered in the village, the sick who never wake, the sudden deaths. The future feels uncertain, fragile as a thin bread in your hand. You close your eyes, hoping tomorrow brings strength and mercy. Winter is coming, and with it, the cold that seeps into your bones. You wake shivering, your breath fogging in the chilly air. Your clothes are thin, barely enough to keep out the biting wind. The fire sputters low, and your mother struggles to find enough wood to keep it alive. Outside, the ground is frozen hard, making chores even harder. Water freezes in buckets, and the animals huddle together for warmth. Your fingers are numb as you help milk the goats, your breath painful in your lungs. You dream of soft beds and warm blankets, but no such things belong to the rich. Your body aches constantly, and the cold steals your strength. You clutch your cloak tighter, willing yourself to keep moving, keep surviving. Because here, in this unforgiving land, giving up is not an option. Every day, you join the line of villagers waiting to draw water from the well. It's a narrow stone shaft, barely wide enough for two buckets side by side. The well is the village's lifeline, but also its greatest danger. You balance a heavy wooden bucket on your hip, your arms trembling from the weight. The rope is rough on your hands, and the water smells earthy. with a hint of something foul you try not to think about. You know better than to drink straight from the river. The water there is often muddy with animal waste and garbage, making people sick with fevers and cramps. Each trip to the well means jostling with other villagers, dodging complaints, and guarding your spot like it's a treasure. When it's your turn, you lower the bucket carefully and haul it up, feeling the grit and grime cling to your skin. On the way back, you try to avoid stepping into the mud puddles, but the village roads are barely paths, and your shoes soak through quickly. By the time you reach home, your arms ache and your back is sore, but you dump the water into a wooden basin. This water is for cooking, washing, and sometimes even drinking. If the ale runs out, you wonder how people centuries in the future will take clean water for granted. For you, it's a daily battle. Autumn is both the most hopeful and terrifying time of year. The harvest will decide if your family survives the coming winter or succumbs to hunger. You rise before dawn, heading to the fields with your father and brothers. The morning fog hangs low, dampening your clothes and chilling your skin. With a sickle in your hand, you cut tall stalks of wheat, the blade dull but deadly in your grasp. The work is backbreaking, bending over for hours, sweat mixing with dirt on your face. You hear your father shout warnings about the lords watching nearby, reminding you not to drop a single stalk or risk punishment. As you gather sheaves of grain, you notice the small creatures scurrying away, mice, beetles, even snakes hiding in the underbrush. The grain must be bundled and stacked carefully, ready for threshing and storage. Every so often, you pause to wipe your brow and gulp down some weak beer, the only drink safe enough to keep you going. You think about the winter stores and pray the harvest is good enough, because if the crops fail, starvation will come knocking on your door. Sunday means church. You pull on your best tunic, the one with fewer holes and less grime. The village church is a small stone building, cold and drafty inside, filled with the smell of smoke, incense, and old wood. You sit on a hard wooden bench with the rest of your family, surrounded by neighbors dressed in their own rough clothes. The priest reads from a giant book, his voice booming and echoing against the stone walls. You don't understand most of the Latin words, but you know the rituals. The crossing yourself, the kneeling, the solemn faces. Church is part prayer, part obligation, and part escape. You hope for mercy, for protection from plague and famine, but also fear the wrath of God and the priest's warnings. After service, the village elders discuss taxes, tithes, and news from the Lord's manor. The church is a center of life and control. You leave with a small piece of blessed bread, a reminder that faith is both a comfort and a tool. In your village, sickness is never far away. The plague has touched lives you've known, neighbors, friends, even distant relatives. You see the sick lie in their beds, pale and sweating, too weak to speak. The village healer uses herbs and prayers, but death often wins. You dread the fever that comes with chills, the coughing that rips your chest, and the sores that fester. Funerals are common, but never easy. The body is wrapped in rough cloth and carried to the churchyard, where a hole has already been dug. There is no time for mourning. Life demands you work, eat, and survive. You pray silently that you and your family will be spared. But you know too well that death could come for you at any moment, without warning, without mercy. Disease is the silent ruler of the Middle Ages. You crawl back into your straw bed as darkness swallows the village. Outside, wolves howl in the distance, and dogs bark at shadows you can't see. The cold seeps through the cracks in the walls, making you pull your cloak tighter. Your stomach grumbles, emptier than usual. You wonder if the neighbors have enough to eat. Your younger siblings whimper in the dark, scared of nightmares and the unknown. Sleep is fitful, broken by coughing fits, scratching fleas, and the ache in your muscles. Your mind races with worries. Will the crop survive? Will your father return from the fields? Will another sickness sweep through? You clutch your wooden bowl, the last remnants of the day's meal. The only comfort is knowing that when dawn breaks, you will rise again, ready to face whatever the cruel world throws your way. Because giving up means death, and you're not ready to die yet. Morning arrives, and you make your way to the village market. It's a muddy clearing where wooden stalls are set up haphazardly, selling everything from vegetables to worn-out tools. The smell of manure mixes with roasting meat and damp earth. You clutch a few coins you manage to save, a rare treasure you've been hoarding for weeks. Coins are heavy and few, passed between hands with great care. You need a trade for salt, some fabric, or maybe a candle if you're lucky. Vendors shout over each other, trying to lure customers. You barter hard. Your life depends on every penny. The smith is there, hammering away at a horseshoe, sweat running down his dirty face. The baker offers bread, still warm, but you know it will last only a day. Around you, villagers gather in small circles, exchanging news and rumors. You hear whispers about the Lord's upcoming visit and the strange sickness spreading from a neighboring village. Everyone's on edge. You spot the healer's stall, a clutter of dried herbs, roots, and strange bottles. She smiles when she sees you, but warns that medicine is scarce and expensive. You trade a basket of eggs for a handful of dried beans and a small candle. It's not much, but it might get your family through another night. You leave the market dusty, tired, but carrying a sliver of hope, a rare feeling in these hard times. Unlike the nobles or the clergy, you didn't go to school. Learning to read and write is a privilege for the wealthy or those destined for the church. You're expected to know your prayers by heart, but reading? Forget it. Instead, your education is brutal and practical. You learn to mend fences, tend animals, and cook meals. Your teacher is the harsh life itself. When the priest reads from the Bible, you listen to sound, but the words are a mystery. Sometimes, the village scribe comes by to record taxes or deeds, writing in cramped letters on fragile parchment. You watch but cannot join. You've heard tales of books filled with wisdom and stories, but they are locked away, far beyond your reach. This limits your future. You will remain tied to the fields, to labor, to survival. But you dream, sometimes, of a world where words are your weapons, where knowledge is power, not just hard work. For now, you make do with what you know, how to live day by day and hold on. Once or twice a year, the village holds a feast to celebrate a saint's day or a successful harvest. Today is one of those rare occasions. You wake to the smell of fresh bread and roasting meat, the scent almost foreign to your daily routine. Villagers dress in their best clothes, patched but clean. The Lord steward arrives with a cart of wine and a band of musicians. You watch children dance in a circle while the elders sip weak ale, swapping stories and jokes. There's singing, laughter, and for a moment, the heavy weight of worry lifts. You savor the small treats, honey bread, salted fish, and even some cheese. But you know the feast won't last. Tomorrow, the grind returns. Still, these few hours of joy feel like a precious gift, a reminder that life isn't always misery. You store the memory away like a secret treasure, one that will keep you going through the hard days. You often visit the blacksmith's forge, fascinated by the glow of hot coals and the rhythmic clang of hammer on metal. The smith is a giant of a man, muscles bulging, face covered in soot. He shapes horseshoes, nails, and weapons with a skill that seems almost magical. You watch as he lifts a glowing piece of iron, pounds on an anvil, and dips it into water, sending up a cloud of steam. His work keeps the village moving. Horses need shoes, tools need sharpening, and every sword must be battle-ready. You try to help sometimes, carrying coal or handing over tools, but the work is dangerous and exhausting. You dream of forging your own blade one day, but know it will take years of apprenticeship, something your family can't afford. Still, the forge is a place of power and creation, a bright spot in your rough life. You watch your mother rise before dawn to start her day. She's already cooking, cleaning, spinning wool, and caring for younger siblings. Women in the village do everything, from making clothes and churning butter to delivering babies and nursing the sick. Your mother's hands are callous and cracked, but her spirit is fierce. She has no time to rest, no chance for leisure. Her work is constant and unappreciated. She teaches you how to sew and tend the fire, skills you'll need if you survive childhood. Despite the hardships, she holds the family together, a pillar of strength. Women have little say in the village decisions or property. They belong to their fathers, then their husbands. Yet, their labor keeps the world turning. You admire her and fear the hard path that lies ahead for you, too. Every day starts and ends with the church. It's the heart of your village, A stone building that smells of incense, dust, and old prayers. You don't just visit the church. It visits you in every thought, every fear, every hope. The priest controls not only your soul, but much of your life. If you sin, he'll know. If you stray, he'll punish. Confession is a terrifying ritual where you admit your faults and beg for mercy. You learn the prayers by rote, though many words feel like magic spells. Latin sounds strange on your tongue, but it's the language of God, so you repeat it anyway. Mass is long, cold, and crowded. The choir sings in voices that echo through the rafters, but you mostly focus on keeping your knees from aching. The church controls the calendar, holy days, fasts, festivals, and that means your life revolves around it. Miss a Mass, and you're a sinner. Fail to fast, and you risk exile. The church owns land, collects tithes, and wields power over the Lord himself. Still, it offers hope, a promise of heaven, a rest from hardship. You clutch that promise tightly, because the life you know is hard, but maybe, just maybe, the next one will be better. Beyond the village lies the forest, dark, tangled, and full of stories. You know better than to wander too far alone. Wolves howl, bears roam, and bandits prey on the weak. But the forest is also your pantry. You gather firewood, hunt rabbits, pick berries and herbs for medicine. Your father taught you to respect the trees and to fear the silence. One wrong step, and you might never return. Wood is precious, fuel for fires, raw material for tools, building and fences. Sometimes, the Lord forbids entering the forest, claiming it as his own. But hunger makes rules fade. Poaching is dangerous. If caught, the punishment is brutal, sometimes death. Still, you risk it, because without the forest bounty, your family won't survive winter. The forest teaches you caution, patience, and respect for life and death. You've seen more births and deaths than birthdays. When a child is born, it's often a home, midwife, or mother helping with no medicines, no hospitals. The pain is raw and loud. Many babies don't survive their first year. Many mothers don't survive childbirth. You've held newborns who never breathed, wrapped in cloth and buried quickly. Death is never far away. Illness, accidents, hunger, and war claim lives every day. The village is a small graveyard, filled with wooden crosses and simple stones. Funerals are solemn. The priest recites prayers, neighbors bring food, and stories are told. You've learned early that life is fragile and short. To survive, you must be strong, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Every life lost is a reminder. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. You wake before dawn to join your family in the fields. Harvest season means the difference between full bellies and starvation. You work the land with sickles and hoes, bending until your back aches. Sweat drips into your eyes as you cut wheat stalks, gathering them into bundles. The sun beats down mercilessly. Blisters form on your hands. But stopping isn't an option. The Lord's overseer watches closely, ensuring no one takes extra grain. You carry heavy loads to the barn, stacking bundles carefully to dry. Every stalk counts. A bad harvest means famine, sickness, and death. When night falls, your family gathers around a small fire, exhausted but grateful for the day's work. Harvest isn't just labor, it's survival, and you carry its weight on your shoulders. Rumors spread like wildfire. A terrible sickness called the Black Death is creeping across the land. People say it kills within days, black boils covering the skin, breath turning foul. Villagers grow scared, locking doors, avoiding neighbors. No one knows how it spreads or how to stop it. Some blame the Jews, others say it's God's punishment. You watch as neighbors fall ill, then die. The village feels smaller every day. The priest prays harder, but prayers seem useless. Fear grips you. Will you be next? Will your family survive? The Black Death is more than disease. It's a shadow hanging over your future. You cling to hope, but the dark times ahead are terrifying. Market day is the one day you almost feel free. You wake early, excited, knowing you'll leave your cramped hut and the endless chores behind. The village marketplace is a bustling, chaotic place, a swirl of noise, smells, and colors unlike anything else in your life. You push through crowds of peasants, merchants, and traders from nearby villages. The cobblestones are slick with mud and animal droppings, and your feet ache. But it's worth it. Here, you see things you don't have at home. Dried fish, bright claw scraps, and shiny metal trinkets that glitter like stars. You carry whatever you can barter or sell. A few eggs, some butter, maybe a woven basket. Your mother tells you to haggle hard, but you know the stall owners already know how desperate you are. Food smells assault your nose. Fresh bread baked in stone ovens, smoky sausages hanging from hooks, apples and root vegetables piled high. You watch with envy as nobles from a nearby manor stroll past, their clothes clean and soft, their boots polished. Children run between the stalls, yelling and playing, while adults discuss news, gossip, or barter for tools. The market is your only escape, a place where you glimpse a life beyond mud and misery. But by dusk, you return home, pockets lighter but heart fuller, reminded that tomorrow it's back to the grind. The blacksmith's forge is a place of magic. You've been there many times, watching sparks fly as the smith pounds glowing iron into shape. The heat from the fire makes the air thick and hard to breathe, but the ringing hammer fills you with awe. You know the blacksmith is vital. He makes tools, horseshoes, nails, and weapons. Without him, the village would fall apart. Sometimes, your father brings you along to collect a new plow blade or fix a broken axe. The smell of burning coal, hot metal, and sweat fills your nostrils. The smith's muscles bulge as he works, his face blackened by soot. You try to keep your distance from the fire, but the heat still stings your skin. The blacksmith doesn't talk much, but his work speaks volumes, strong, reliable, and essential. You dream of learning the trade someday, but you also know it takes years and sweat to master. For now, you watch, learning patience and respect for hard labor. You wake up to the sound of bleating goats, clucking hens, and the occasional grunt of a pig. These animals aren't just livestock, they're your family's lifeline. Your job is to feed them, water them, and protect them from wolves and thieves. The goats give milk, which your mother uses for cheese and butter. Chickens lay eggs, sometimes more than you can eat. The pigs root in the mud, messy and noisy, but they're valuable when slaughter day comes. You learn to move quietly around them, knowing that a scared animal can break a fence or ruin a crop. Sometimes you get attached. The little lamb that follows you everywhere. The hen that lays eggs right outside your door. But you also know their purpose: food, clothing, and trade. Caring for animals teaches you responsibility, patience, and how fragile life can be. The village well is a hub of activity. Every morning, women and children gather there to fill their buckets with cold, fresh water. It's hard work, lifting heavy buckets, balancing them on hips, and carrying them back home. You go with your mother sometimes, learning to fetch water without spilling a drop. The well is also where news travels fast. You hear whispers about who's sick, who's marrying, or which lord is visiting. Women gossip, share advice on herbs and remedies, and warn each other about dangers. You listen carefully, learning who to trust and what to fear. The well is more than a water source. It's the village's heart, pulsing with life and secrets. At your age, you don't get to rest. From dawn to dusk, you work like everyone else. Child labor is just life. You help your mother with chores, fetching water, tending animals, sweeping the floor. You learn to spin wool, sew patches on your clothes, and carry firewood. Even school is rare. Most kids your age know only how to work. Your hands are rough and calloused. Your back aches from bending. You dream of playing or learning to read, but that feels like a story from another world. You understand that your survival depends on your labor. There's no childhood, just growing up fast. You never know when sickness will strike, but you live in constant fear of it. When someone in your family falls ill, the whole household feels the weight of doom. The village healer comes with her bundle of dried herbs, strange potions, and whispered prayers. Sometimes she uses leeches or cuts the skin, hoping to let out bad spirits. You watch as your mother tries to keep the sick warm by the fire, but the fever doesn't break. There's no doctor, no medicine cabinet, just folk remedies and prayers to saints who might be listening. If it's the plague, you hear stories of neighbors disappearing overnight, their homes sealed with no one allowed inside. You learn quickly to avoid those houses. You know you must keep working even if you feel weak, because if you don't, there's no food. But sometimes the body just gives up. Death is common. Babies, the elderly, the unlucky, they don't stand a chance. You carry the burden of survival on your shoulders. Each cough, each fever, is a reminder that life is fragile and harsh. You pray silently for help, knowing well that fate is never kind. Your days are marked not only by chores, but also by the church's rhythms. The priest visits often, reminding you of sin and salvation. You're taught to fear God and obey the church's rules, because that's how you stay out of eternal fire. Church is your social center and your moral compass. You dress in your Sunday best, which is just the same tunic, a little cleaner, and sit through long, dull sermons in Latin. You don't understand most of it, but you know to bow your head at the right moments. The church owns much of the land and controls your village's fate. The tithe, money or crops given to the church, leaves your family poorer each harvest. But disobedience is an option. The priest is the man with power, backed by fear of God and the Lord. You learn stories of saints and miracles, but you mostly feel the pressure to conform. The church is a roof over your head and a chain around your neck. Breaking a rule here means serious trouble. Justice isn't fair or kind. If you steal bread because your family is starving, you might be whipped in the village square or branded with a hot iron. Lords and their judges decide your fate without a trial by jury. Punishments include public humiliation, stocks, and sometimes worse, amputation or execution. You hear tales of people disappearing overnight or being locked in dungeons with no food or water. The mere sight of the village constable, armed and stern, sends shivers down your spine. Crime isn't rare, but desperation drives most. You avoid trouble, but you know it's a thin line between survival and punishment. Justice here isn't about right or wrong. It's about power and fear. Winter is the worst enemy. The cold seeps into your bones, freezing your fingers and toes. You have only a few thin wool layers to keep warm, and the firewood runs out too fast. Food becomes scarce. The fields lie barren under snow. You eat less and less, saving what little you have for the strongest. Hunger gnaws at your belly like a persistent beast. Water freezes, so you break ice to drink. You worry about animals dying and crops failing next spring. Everyone moves slower, voices quieter, bodies weaker. You wake up each morning dreading the cold, knowing that sickness and death rise with the frost. Surviving winter is a test of will, endurance, and luck. If you're a girl in this family, life is a non-stop cycle of work. From dawn, you fetch water, tend animals, grind grain, and sew clothing. You help your mother prepare food, clean the hut, and care for younger siblings. There's no rest, no time for play. Marriage is expected early. Your future is largely decided by your family's needs, often to strengthen alliances or ease poverty. Women have little say in decisions and few rights. You learn to be obedient, quiet, and strong. Despite hardships, women hold the family together with tireless labor and quiet resilience. You hear your mother's screams echo through the wooden walls. Childbirth is terrifying and dangerous. There's no hospital, no doctor with modern tools. Just a village midwife, some herbs, and prayers to saints. Your mother's pain lasts hours, maybe days. If she survives, that's only the start. Babies are fragile. Many don't live past their first year. You've seen tiny bodies wrapped in rough linen, buried quickly in shallow graves. Your family worries with every cough, every fever. You learn early that children are gifts, but also a gamble. They keep coming because survival chances are low. Hope in numbers, they say. Each child means more mouths to feed, but also more hands to work. You watch your mother carry the weight of both life and death silently, exhaustion etched deep in her eyes. No maternity leave, no rest, just the relentless cycle of work and worry. Childbirth is a life or death lottery, and most lose. Growing up means understanding that loss is normal, even expected. But you hold on to hope, because without it, there's nothing left. If you're born into this family, you probably won't learn to read or write. Books are rare and precious, kept locked away in monasteries or noble castles. Most people don't see a book in their lifetime. Your only chance is if the local church takes you in as an apprentice, or if your family can afford to send you to a monastery school. Even then, lessons are strict, and Latin is the only language taught. You copy prayers and scripture, learning discipline more than knowledge. Without reading, you rely on oral tradition, stories, songs, and advice passed down by word of mouth. You memorize folk tales and warnings because they're the closest thing to education. Literacy is a key that unlocks power and opportunity. But for most, that key remains forever out of reach. You grow up knowing your place, with few options to change it. When the market day arrives, the whole village gathers at the square. You carry your meager goods, eggs, vegetables, a few chickens, to trade. Money is scarce, so bartering is the norm. You exchange what you have for what you need, grain for salt, wool for tools. The market is noisy, crowded, and chaotic. You dodge carts, animals, and strangers. It's also a place to hear news from travelers and neighboring villages. Gossip spreads faster than wildfire. You learn who's sick, who's at a fight, who's in trouble with the Lord. Trading is a delicate skill. You haggle fiercely, knowing that every penny counts. Being cheated could mean your family goes hungry. Despite the harshness, market day is a break from daily chores, a glimpse of a world beyond your village walls. But when night falls, you return home, tired and carrying the weight of survival on your shoulders. You plant seed with hope each spring, but the weather doesn't always cooperate. Droughts, floods, and pests can wipe out entire harvests. When crops fail, famine follows. Your family eats less and less. Hunger twists your stomach into knots. You watch your younger siblings grow weaker, their faces hollow with desperation. You learn to stretch every crumb and ration your meager stores like precious gold. Famine doesn't just kill. It breeds desperation, crime, and despair. People steal what little they can find. Villages grow restless. Sometimes, the Lord demands a share even when there's nothing left. You understand that your survival is fragile, tethered to the mercy of the land and the unpredictable skies. You pray for rain, for good harvests, and for the strength to endure another year. Despite the hardships, there are days when the village bursts with color and life. Feast days and festivals are rare, but they remind you there's more to life than work and misery. You dress in your best clothes, even if they're patched and faded. The village gathers for music, dancing, and games. There's food, usually more than usual, sometimes even meat or sweet cakes. Ale flows freely and laughter fills the air. For a few hours, you forget the cold, hunger, and backbreaking labor. You feel part of something bigger, a community, a tradition that connects you to generations past. But when the festival ends, reality returns. The fields still need tending, the fires still need feeding, and the endless grind of survival continues. Those moments of joy are brief and precious, memories that keep you going through the darkest days. Every day, you wake up knowing sickness is waiting nearby. The smell of rot and waste isn't just unpleasant. It's a breeding ground for disease. You've lost cousins, neighbors, even friends to fevers, coughing, and mysterious illnesses no one can explain. Smallpox, measles, and the plague lurk in every corner. When someone gets sick, the whole village feels it. There's no medicine or hospitals, only herbs, prayers, and hope. You watch helplessly as bodies waste away and the dead are buried quickly, sometimes without ceremony. You learn to live with fear. Every cough makes your heart race. You avoid touching faces or sharing cups, but that's almost impossible when everyone shares water from the same well and sleeps in the same crowded huts. Your body becomes toughened by hardship, but even the strongest aren't immune. Disease can take the strongest adult or the tiniest baby. Death is never far, and mourning is a constant companion. You survive by keeping your distance when you can, and by accepting that illness is just part of life. You were born into this village, and your life is shaped by the local lord's whims. He owns the land, the animals, and even the people. You work his fields, pay his taxes, and obey his rules, or face harsh punishment. The Lord's castle looms on the hill, a constant reminder of power you don't possess. Soldiers patrol the roads, eyes sharp for any sign of rebellion or disrespect. You've heard stories of villagers beaten or imprisoned for the smallest offenses, stealing a turnip, missing work, or speaking out of turn. When the Lord visits, the village scrambles to prepare. You clean, you dress, you bring gifts, mostly food or labor, to stay in his favor. But no matter how hard you try, You know your family's survival depends on his mercy. You dream of freedom, but accept your place. The Lord's word is law, and disobedience means ruin. You learn to serve quietly, obey quickly, and never ask for more. Faith is woven into every moment of your life. You attend church on Sundays, pray before meals, and carry a small wooden cross or holy medal if you can. The church is the center of the village, spiritual guide, law enforcer, and community hub. You fear hellfire more than death itself. Tales of demons, devils, and eternal punishment fill your mind. You confess sins, ask for forgiveness, and hope your prayers are enough to save your soul. The priest preaches strict obedience and warns against sin, lust, greed, anger, and even laughter at the wrong time. You learn to watch your actions carefully. The church's gaze is never far. Holy days bring relief and celebration, but also reminders of your sins. You believe the church holds the keys to salvation, so you give what little you have, coins, food, and time. Your life balances between fear and hope, salvation and damnation. Justice in your world is swift and harsh. Crime is not tolerated, and punishments are brutal. Theft means whipping or worse. Disrespect to a lord or a priest can land you in stocks or chained in the village square. You've seen neighbors dragged away for minor offenses. Public shaming is common. Being locked in the pillory, forced to wear a sign, or paraded through the streets. Children learn early that breaking rules means pain. Executioners are feared but necessary. Hanging or beheading is reserved for serious crimes. Sometimes, accused witches or heretics meet cruel death by fire or drowning. There's no trial by jury like you know now. The Lord or priest decides your fate, often with little evidence. Fear keeps you obedient, and rebellion is almost unheard of. You live with the constant reminder that one mistake can ruin your life, or end it. You fought through the endless days, work, hunger, sickness, cold. And now, as night falls, you lie on your hard bed of straw and hay, muscles screaming and spirit worn thin. The candle flickers low, shadows stretching long across your cramped hut. Your family murmurs prayers, faces pale and tired. But tonight, your breath is shallow. The cough that's haunted you for weeks steals strength from your chest. Fever burns your skin, and no herbs, no prayers, no whispered blessings can stop what's coming. You feel the weight of death settling in, inevitable, cold, and merciless. In this world, dying young is normal. The weak don't survive. The strong endure just a little longer. There's no doctor, no cure, no last rites from a trained priest. Only the crude comfort of family gathered close, holding your hand as your eyes glaze over. Your final thoughts aren't of battles won or dreams fulfilled. They're the small moments you treasured. A child's laugh, a shared meal, a rare warm day in the sun. You drift away to silence, joining the countless souls swallowed by this harsh land. The next morning, the village wakes. Life goes on. Your bed is swept bare, your place in the hut left empty, your name soon forgotten. Another body buried in the shallow grave behind the churchyard, marked only by a wooden cross and whispered prayers. This is medieval life. Brutal, short, and unforgiving. Most don't live long enough to see their 30th birthday. Survival is a temporary victory. Death is a permanent end. And so, your story closes not with triumph, but with the truth. In 1325, life was a battle you often lost.